But once he learns, you know, you check them up once or twice, they're going to know how to drop off that pressure. Once they do, you can get on and you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to get back on. Okay, the main uses of this German Martingale, like I said, is to get this horse to flex at the pole, and I want to make sure he flexes at the pole while he's going forward, while he's backing up, while he's walking in a circle. I want him to be real flexible, real supple, both laterally and vertically, okay? And I'll usually start with teaching a horse lateral flexion, give his head to the side. And I'll keep walking him forward with my, you know, bumping him with my legs. Ask his head to come out to the side. Now notice, if this horse was to pull on me, the leverage of the German Martingale would give me the strength to set that rein solid and keep him from going through my hands, okay? I don't want the horse to be able to pull through my hands. That's why I keep my butt seated, and I use my hand in an angle where I can lock my arm and lock my fingers and make that bit almost solid so he's forced to give to it. Now this, using our hands and stuff, I mean, we're kind of pressed for time in this video because we've got a lot of other equipment we got to cover. So if you want to get really detailed on how to use your hands and your legs and stuff, I go through all that in my other training tapes. But we'll just hit on the high points here. Now, once I have them given their head laterally, I want them to give their head vertically. Okay? And once they'll do it from the standstill, I want them to do it while they're going forward and backward also. I'll ride the horse forward. Notice how my hands are in front of the saddle. I have the slack out of the reins, and I'm anchoring the reins between my thumb and forefingers. I'll have the camera coming close on my hands here. I anchor the rein between my thumb and forefinger so my little fingers are free to open and close on the rein. And that's how I feel out his nose, and that's how I set the bit solid. When I'm initially making contact, I want to do it with my little fingers so it's a nice smooth contact. But when it's time to set the bit solid, to make it immovable so he drops off of it, I'm going to close my fingers on the reins, lock my arm so that that bit is just totally immovable. And that's what encourages him to drop off of it. And even though we've got the German Martingale on the horse, which aids us in doing that, we still have to handle the reins right. Okay, any training aid, or at least none that I know of, is going to perform magic. You still have to use them correctly. You still have to use your hands correctly. Okay. Now on the back up, I get him to drop off of it. I basically feel out his mouth with my little fingers, then come down here, set the bit solid. Now I ask the back up with my legs. I'm just asking for motion, and because the bit is set solid in front of him, he's forced to back up. He really can't go through it. Now, if he wants to pull on me, I might seesaw the bit a little bit, and as soon as he drops off it, I'll quit seesawing and give him the slack. Seesaw him, and notice how his pole is lowering as well as his nose coming back to me. I like that even better because we don't want a horse's pole way up above his withers, okay? Number one, it looks bad, and number two, it has a tendency to hollow out their back. So if the more level we can have that top line, the better I like it. Let's talk about a little bit of a collection here. To collect him, I just drive him forward, up into the bit, and I have them back off the bit. Now, to get them to continue to go forward while they back off the bit, I have to use the bit, I have to set the bit solid intermittently, one side and then the other. And what I'm doing is I'm closing my fingers on my left hand, then my right hand, then my left hand, then my right hand, which sets up a little bit of a vibration or a little seesaw motion, and that encourages him to drop off of it. But I want to keep him in front of my legs, which means when I use my legs, I want him squirting out in front of me, and I want him behind the bit, behind my hands, so that I've got him in between my hands and my legs, and control his body that way. Okay, so I'll ride him forward with my legs first, then I'll make contact with his mouth, and I'll open and close the fingers on my hands, left, right, left, right. Now, I'm not moving my fingers very much. I'm only moving them about 1/4 of an inch, but the horse can feel it. You see how he's really wanting to back off that bit? And that's what we want. We want to keep him behind the bit and in front of our legs when we're wanting to collect him up. When I want to stop him, I set the bit solid and he stops, okay? When I want to back him up, I make contact with his mouth, bring my elbows back, ask for motion with my legs. If I need to, I can seesaw the bit to lower his pole a little bit. Now, a lot of people ask me when they should use a German Martingale. Okay, we already know why. The reason why is because it gives the horse a clear understanding of where we want his head to go, to get that release of pressure. I would use this thing anytime I'm going to introduce a new maneuver to a horse that has a tendency to bring his head up. A lot of times when we're teaching lead departures, or flying lead changes, or stops, sliding stops, that will sometimes have a tendency to get a horse bringing his head up, especially when we're using our legs or our spurs to move the hips over. Boy, a lot of horses, it makes that pole want to go real high. And we want to prevent that from happening in the first place. You know, I could get it done with just my hands, you know, you could too, without the German Martingale. Thing is, pretty tough to be working on his head while you're also trying to work on his hips to get the lead change or the lead departure. It's too much that you have to do at one time. So that's when a training aid comes in handy. I'll also use a German Martingale probably starting that 2nd or 3rd month that I'm riding a green colt. I'll put that first month on him, you know, with nothing but just straight reins. But when I'm riding him that 2nd and 3rd month, that's when I start teaching him to flex at the pole, and let's start getting more advanced in his training. And I'll put this German Martingale on him and ride him with it for 2 or 3 months until giving his head and having good head position has become a habit for him. And once it becomes a habit, well then I really don't need to ride him with it much anymore, but I'll still ride him with it maybe once a week to remind him. Some of the older horses, I might go for 3-4 months without using it, and then I might need to ride him with it for a week just to tune up and just as a reminder, okay? So that pretty much covers the German Martingale. I highly recommend it. If there was only one piece of one training aid that I could choose, this would be the one that I would choose.